And due to the global immunization campaign led by the WHO, smallpox was declared eradicated in 1980. As we have heard throughout this session, it is the disease that was once much of the problem in the past and much feared due to high mortality rates and disfiguring even in the survivors. So the eradication of smallpox was therefore a major triumph of public health. Also, the efforts were taken for polio eradication, also considered as one of the largest global and public health initiatives. The last case of polio in the American region was in Peru in 1991, and in Western Pacific region in Cambodia in 1997, in the European region in Turkey in 1998. So with the novel development of antibiotics, the scientific society had high hopes. As we can see in the previous slide, that experts were now very optimistic that we could overcome the microbes. However, since the mass production of penicillin, there was also almost a simultaneous emergence of penicillin-resistant bacteria. Okay, and then methicillin and cephan antibiotics were also being developed, and simultaneously, not long after that, the resistant bacteria emerged. Until around 1985, almost all antibiotics were becoming impotent, except for maybe, for example, vancomycin. But the vicious cycle seems to continue as vancomycin-resistant bacteria also emerged in later in 1986. So yet maybe partly due to the emergence of antimicrobial resistant, yet nearly 50,000 people were dying every day from infectious disease, as reported by the World Health Report in 1996. And at least 30 new diseases have emerged in the last 20 years, and now together threaten health of hundreds and millions of people. And for many of the diseases, there's still no treatment, no cure, no vaccine. And Dr. Nakajima, I'm sorry, this is a bit too small, who was the Director General of the WHO during the period, stated that we also stand on the brink of the global crisis in infectious diseases, and no country is safe from them. So the over-optimism in the 1960s and 70s were pretty much shattered with the identification of HIV in 1983, which has caused millions of infections. Professor Kihara will actually be talking on the epidemic of the global epidemic of HIV in the, I'm not sure, maybe the next session. But then, since then, the spread of infectious disease epidemic also has affected many parts of the world, along with the wake-up call of the antibiotic resistance, as we have seen in the previous slide. So let's touch a little bit upon the concept of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, but I believe Dr. Sugimoto will be discussing in more details maybe in the next lecture. So emerging infectious disease is there are diseases that have not occurred in humans before or have previously occurred but affected only a small number of people in isolated places. On the other hand, re-emerging infectious diseases are those diseases that were once major public health problems globally or in a particular country, but then declined dramatically and then again becoming a major health problems for a significant proportion of the population. As shown here, these are some examples of the emerging and re-emerging diseases. Newly emerging diseases are shown in red. For example, SARS, E. coli, H5N1 influenza, and the re-emerging diseases are shown in blue. For example, plague, as we have talked about throughout the course, cholera, and so on and so forth. So we have come to this last slide that I will provide the summary of the class. Also to stress the evolution of the understanding of infectious disease epidemiology. More than 10,000 years ago, humans were basically hunters and gatherers, and there was no epidemic of diseases during those times. Approximately 10,000 years ago, when humans started to learn skills to cultivate crops or to domesticate animals, that might have led into the first zoonoses that marked the major step in infectious disease in humans. Also, with the concentrated dwelling and increase in population with poor living condition, this gave birth to the epidemic, to the propagation of epidemics. Also, to talk about the evolution of the understanding of infectious disease during that time, diseases were believed to have been the result of supernatural punishment and curse from gods or angry spirits. And a few years later, Hippocrates proposed the relationship of diseases to nature. He was the first to propose the observation of the imbalance between man and environment. Also, this influential theory gave rise to the miasma theory. And the next period was the Great Age of Discovery, where there was a globalization of diseases. As we have seen throughout the course, that it has led into the prosperity of infectious diseases. And this was the first phase of germ theory as proposed by Castro, the seed theory. And then the age of enlightenment and scientific discovery, city planning and sanitation, vaccine and antibiotic discovery has led into the decline of infectious disease. Also, the evolution of understanding, the germ theory has developed much more strengthened into the second phase. through epidemiological observation and indirect proof by intervention. And then it was due to Pasteur and Koch that led to the settlement of germ theory, that through their identification of pathogens through his experiment, and also discovery of vectors. And the present days, we are seeing antimicrobial resistance through also the increase in population, development of transportation, and global environmental changes, also emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases have all together led into the prosperity of the infectious disease in the second phase, as in the present day. So this concludes today's class. And if you have questions or concern, please feel free to contact the course director, which is Professor Kihara, or me myself, through our emails. And if you have questions, maybe we can discuss after class. If no questions, I would like to wrap up, and thank you very much.